Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on our how to utilize the waiting period between AFK and ACJ. My name is Rafiq. I'm client relations here at Prep Doctors, and we're joined by a very wonderful panel, starting with our co-founder and chief learning officer, Dr. Marwan. Good morning, Dr. Marwan.
Good morning.
And we also have Dr. Dulfakar, our senior instructor for AFK and ACJ. And of course, Dr. Khalid Haraim, our course coordinator for course director for our ACJ training program.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Rafiq.
Thank you for joining us today. So we'll be talking today about ACJ and how to utilize the waiting period between AFK and ACJ. So I'll start with you, Dr. Marwan. Just in general, tell us about the ACJ exam to begin with.
Okay, so the ACJ exam, as everybody knows, is the second step. So people who finish the AFK, they have the ability to move on to step number 2, which is the ACJ exam. It's an exam that comes with a different nature and a different approach, and the basic science behind it is the same. So people already have the basics in AFK, but what's going to happen is when they move to the second stage is they have to adjust the approach that they follow in the exam so they can tackle a new and a different system of questions. It becomes more clinical based, so you get rid of all the basic science questions in the AFK. But what happened is, back in the days when people used to finish the AFK, they were actually crunched for time because they finished the AFK and the cycle of ACJ was very close after. Like, for example, people who did the exam in August, back in the days they were able to write the exam in November. So that left with a very, very short period of time. So the challenge we had back in the days was how to actually cover all the material in a short period of time. Then we went to a different pattern with the NDEB, where people who finish AFK, they cannot sign up for November, and the exam is only conducted twice a year. So what's going to happen now is people who finish AFK, they have to wait until May next year. So that ended up in an elongated period of time, and now people started to have choices, and there's a lot of uncertainty. When should we start? What should we do? And so forth. So this actually led to dramatic changes in the ACJ preparation phase, and we have also updated our course.
Yes, that's reflected in our training.
Yeah, so that we can accommodate for such things. So ACJ, just to simplify it, it's actually a cooling off period. It became a cooling off period in the NDEB equivalency process. So AFK is high intensity. They have to study a lot for that exam. Then when it comes to AFK, so I'm starting to tell people this is a cooling off period. This is a time where you can work part-time or even sometimes full-time. You have to prepare for the next high intensity period, which is going to follow ACJ, which is the NDEB exams. Yeah.
All right, awesome. And I know that our program does reflect these changes and the patterns and to accommodate for the cooling off period. So I'll direct this question for Dr. Khalid. Can you talk a little bit more about our ACJ course and the features that we have, that we adopted to reflect those changes?
Sure, absolutely. So can we just switch to the first slide? Just to give people who don't know who don't know much about the ACJ an idea, as Dr. Marwan mentioned, it's more of a clinical exam. So someone who's already been through the AFK exam has already amassed all of the knowledge, all of the information that they actually need for the ACJ exam. However, with the ACJ, since the exam itself is structured differently and the questions you're faced with are very clinical based, they're not really theoretical based questions. The ACJ, the preparation for the ACJ basically is taking that basic knowledge that we have from AFK and presenting it in a way that's relevant to the ACJ exam, which means that we focus more on the most relevant clinical information that people already have from the AFK, but just restructured or introduced in a clinical format. So the ACJ exam has two basic components. There's the clinical cases component, which is you will basically be presented with a patient who has a chief complaint, a patient who has maybe a specific medical history, taking specific medications, they have specific clinical findings. So all of that is presented in the form of a clinical case, and they will ask you questions on that patient. So, for example, based on this patient's medical conditions, how will you manage this patient in a clinical setting? What precautions will you take, for example, for that medical condition? So that's the first.
I have a quick question. So people who finished AFK, from the experience in the AFK, it's a simple multiple choice questions. So people are used to the black and white approach because you have to select one out of 4 or 5 options. So when you move to the ACJ, the level of grayness that develops in that phase, if you can comment on that.
Sure.
Because when we also receive candidates in the NDEC, the situational judgment is very gray.
Absolutely.
So I think there's a scale that starts to get more gray as you progress in the equivalency.
That's absolutely right. So I'll pick up on that point, which is a very important point. But just one thing to say is there's the clinical cases component, and then the other half of the exam is radiographs, X-rays. So they'll present you with an X-ray, and you will have to comment on what findings are visible on that X-ray, which just by looking at this basic outline of the course, we can see how there is that gray area or subjectivity in the exam, and this is very apparent, or this is one of the challenges of this exam, is because it's not 4 or 5 options multiple choice question where there's only one correct answer. The questions you will be faced with in the ACJ, whether it's for the clinical cases or for the radiographs, you will have multiple answers, usually more than 5 or 6 options in the question, and there's usually 1 or more correct answers that you have to choose. So some questions may have 1 correct answer, some questions may have 2, some of them may have 3 correct answers, and so to pick up on what you mentioned, one of the challenges is not just to know the information behind the case, or to know the basic knowledge that you need to know to answer the question, but you also have to develop a very specific approach on how to determine which answers are correct. How should I, while I'm doing my exam, how should I determine, okay, there's only 1 correct answer for this question, or there may be 2 correct answers for these questions, and especially when you're looking at real life scenarios like clinical scenarios and radiographs, it's never a black and white, this is the correct answer from that specific reference. Every single clinical case, every single radiograph needs to be evaluated according to that specific case or that radiograph.
So what happens if you choose the correct answers and you choose an additional answer that is not correct?
What happens in that case, even let's say, for example, hypothetically, a question has 2 correct answers. So in order to get the full grade for that question, you would need to choose the 2 correct answers. Each one will give you half of the grade. So choosing both of them will give you the full grade. If you choose a 3rd answer that's not a correct answer, you will lose the grade for that whole question. So you will end up getting a 0 on that question.
But the negative doesn't carry over to the next
doesn't
question.
carry over to the other questions. So the minimum score you can get for each question is 0 out of 1. So
Okay.
it's not going to be like a negative. That
So
will
if you
carry
chose
over.
multiple wrong answers, it's a 0.
It's a 0 out of 1.
Okay, and for every case, there's multiple questions on that specific.
They're going to ask you a question relating to the medical condition that the patient has. How will you manage this patient? What precautions will you take relative to the hypertension? And then they may ask you an endo-related question, which is based on the patient's signs and symptoms. These are the clinical tests that were done. What is the endodontic diagnosis for this patient?
Okay.
So it's like you're dealing with a real life patient, but on a computer-based examination.
Okay, so that's great to understand the framework of the ACJ, but we talked about how it's a long waiting period. So if you can, or Dr. Darfiqar can comment on how the course have evolved in terms of the information that you teach, because I know that the last cycle you've expanded the ACJ. So what was included in the expansion, and then if someone who just finished AFK, what are their choices and how they can become integrated into the ACJ course in this waiting period?
All right, so that's a very good question. As you mentioned, the challenge with planning ahead on how should I start preparation for the next step, which is the ACJ after you've done the AFK, and what to do with that long waiting period. But to give everyone a better idea of how this long waiting period can best be utilized, let's just quickly go through like the components of our course, the structure of the course, which and then we'll get into what if I want to start now, what if I want to take a little bit of time off between my AFK and ACJ preparations. So if we can go to the next slide, and Dr. Zulfiqar will let you guys know about the different components of the course.
So I'll basically talk about like what to expect when you register for our course, like what are the components of our course. The first component is live lectures. So we will get live lectures. Each lecture will discuss certain topic, and we have approximately 25 lectures plus minus, and the number of lectures for each topic depends on the weight of that topic. So for example, perio will take two lectures, while radio, which has a very large weight in the exam, will take eight probably more. So these lectures will be all online, and all the lectures will be available for to rewatch at home for recording. Yeah,
And they can rewatch it from home.
exactly. They can rewatch it from home. So
okay, and the lectures are online, so I don't have to be in Canada to watch it. I can watch the
yeah, you
lectures
can
live
watch
from
it.
anywhere.
You can watch it wherever you want, whenever you want. And actually, we have some candidates with us who attend the course from abroad,
Yes.
and because of the time difference, they cannot actually attend the course live. So they can actually access the pre-recorded lectures and watch it, and we can have meetings with them later to if they have any questions and so
Oh,
forth.
that's great.
Yeah.
So basically, you're saying if there's a live lecture today, it'll be recorded and it'll be uploaded, so I can watch it at a later
Yeah,
time.
yeah, exactly.
How soon after the lecture is done live is it uploaded?
It should be
Yes, that's a good
available
question.
the next day.
The next day, so
Yeah.
within
The next
24
day.
hours.
Mhm.
This is amazing. This is a very helpful tool.
Yeah.
Alright.
So that's the first component. The second component is a quiz. So what's a quiz? A quiz basically is a set of 20 questions or more, of course, that focuses mainly on one topic. So, for example, we finish medical management. By the next weekend, we will get a quiz on medical management. That we could, because after finishing a certain topic, we want to focus on that topic. We want to get as much practice as possible on that specific topic. So we will have a topic on each, we'll have a quiz on each topic, of course, and again, because radio has a big weight in the exam, we will have multiple quizzes and multiple practice sessions when it comes
Just
to
for
radio.
radiology.
Exactly.
Okay, and where can I do these quizzes? Do I have to come to our campuses? How do I do these quizzes?
That's a very good question. These quizzes are also online. We have our prep test platform, so you
Nice.
can access the quiz on our prep test platform. And after attempting the quiz, we will have a quiz discussion. Also, it will be live. And
Okay, so
again,
a live quiz discussion.
exactly. Also, the quiz discussion will be available to review later as a pre-recorded session.
I just want to mention that after you do the quiz, you'll immediately get your score. So how much did you score for that quiz,
Mhm.
Alright.
and the correct
And then
answers
I
and
can
so
Yeah.
forth.
get an explanation of the concepts behind the
Exactly.
question during the discussion of the quiz.
So people who attend live, they will be able to ask questions right away.
Exactly.
That's the advantage of the
Yeah.
live. People who watch the recorded lectures, they will get the recording of the lecture, but if they want to ask questions, is there a
Yeah,
mechanism?
we have multiple ways to accommodate for that. First, where they can access us through email whenever they want,
Okay.
and we reply right away. And also, during the last cycle, we implemented a new component, which is the one-on-one session.
Okay.
So we will talk about that in more details a bit later. So if you have any questions or if you have any problem with a certain topic, a certain issue, even if it's not related to like
A general advice, like a general advice.
or you need support. So we have a one-on-one session that is 30 minutes or even more sometimes, that we will discuss whatever our candidate needs.
Nice. So to go back to actually a very common question that I get is, Rafiq, I just wrote my AFK exam. Do I wait for the results to come out, then I start? Do I start now? So
Mhm.
what would be the best approach or the best way, or if you can categorize them into different groups?
Yeah, we will do that in a bit, but if you want, I can just finish the components quickly.
Okay. So yeah. So you talked about the live lectures. That
Yeah.
there's a number of live
Mhm.
lectures, and those they get recorded, uploaded on a platform.
Exactly.
People can access them, and then there's the live quizzes, which
Mhm.
are topic related. So it's not like a full case; it's just cases on the specific. So
Exactly.
ortho has ortho
Ortho
cases
quiz.
only.
Mhm.
Okay, and then there's other
Now,
components.
exactly. Now we want to make things a bit more challenging. So how do we do that? We do the weekly mocks. A weekly mock is a set of 60 to 75 questions where it covers all topics. So simply, a weekly mock is similar to a full mock, but it has half of the number of questions that a full mock has.
All right.
Same with the quizzes; they will get the scores right away, and after they do the mock, the weekly mock, which is also online, we will do the weekly mock discussion and the Q&A session, which will also be online and recorded for them to review whenever they want.
Very nice. And is this weekly mock, is it timed? Do I have to do it within a specific time period, or how do I will have all day to do it? So
Yeah.
how does it work?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
So usually we have the weekly mock or the quiz will be the weekly mock. So as soon as you start, of course it's timed because we also want candidates to be aware of the time restraints that they will have in the actual exam. So for example, the weekly mock exam is like half a mock exam.
Mhm.
So the time that they will have to solve these set of questions is half the time that they will have
For the
for
full
the
mock
full
exam.
mock exam or the actual
That
exam.
makes sense.
To also train them on time management as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But they can they can solve it. They can start to do the exam at any time they want
within the 48 hours before
before the
the
discussion.
discussion of that quiz or weekly mock.
Okay.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah. So we time our questions in general. So each question will have approximately 2 minutes. Like for example, if the quiz is 40 questions, the time will be 80 minutes, and so forth.
All right.
That's the same ratio that the NDEB actual ACJ exam has per question.
Per question.
Yeah.
So we'll try to adapt
To
our
adapt.
candidates
Yeah.
to do the best they can.
And now the final component of the course is the full mock exam, which resembles the actual exam that they will do, which is a set of 120 to 150 questions. And those mocks, we have 4 full mock exams.
Yes.
2 of those will be online, and the discussion will be also online. And the other 2 will be on site. Also, the discussion of those will be on site.
Okay, so the candidates have to actually attend at one of our campuses
Mhm.
to be able to write mock
Exactly.
3 and mock 4.
Yeah. So the last 2 mocks, mock 3 and 4, are held fully on site.
Mm-hmm.
The mock itself and the discussion, whereas the first 2, mocks 1 and 2, are fully online.
Online.
So they will attempt the exam itself online. They will do the exam online on the online platform, and the discussion will be held online as well for the first 2 mocks.
Okay.
So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk about how sort of the timeline of our ACJ course, because
Yes.
I want to circle back to Dr. Marwan's question, which is how do I utilize the waiting time, and what if I want to start right away? What if I want to take a short break before starting with the
Yeah.
with the ACJ exam? So can we just switch to the next slide? So our course is basically divided into 3 phases, and this is the timeline of the course according to the cycle that is ongoing right now, which is in preparation for the November exam. So we actually started the ACJ course in preparation for the November exam. We started in June.
Okay.
And this was one of the major changes that we made this year to our course, which is we expanded the time of the course. And the reason we did this was there's 2 benefits to that. We were able to incorporate more comprehensive materials on different topics that were previously not usually asked about in the ACJ exam, but we decided to implement these topics in order to prepare our candidates to basically
maximum, yes.
every single aspect of clinical
course.
dentistry that they may be asked with.
And this is usually done through surveys. So candidates say, like, after each course we do surveys. So they say, we want more on this topic, can you expand on this? So based on the surveys, you guys do the expansion.
Exactly. So that's the first thing that the expansion allowed us to do. The second thing was, if we have a longer course time, so if we're starting earlier than usual, we're starting all the way in June, almost 5 months before the exam itself, this gives us a chance to implement practice for the candidates much earlier than they would if the course were to start, for example, in September.
For example.
And so the major focus of our course is always problem-based learning, because the format of the exam is not something that we're usually accustomed to. It's not like a simple multiple choice question. There's multiple answers sometimes, and there's answers, if you choose them, you'll get a 0 out of 1 and so forth. So we want our candidates to be exposed to these types of questions as early on in the course as possible. The longer the period they're practicing these types of questions, ultimately the more comfortable and confident they will be attempting the exam, and the better they will perform. So when we started in June, our goal was to let's start with the practice quizzes as soon as possible, immediately. And so the way that the course was done was the candidates were attending pre-recorded lectures, which again, as soon as you register for the course, you will have access to the online platform where all of the pre-recorded lectures are laid out in sequence. And so, for example, a medical management lecture, they can watch that lecture in preparation for the medical management quiz that they would have for that week.
Okay.
Now, all of that is very meticulously scheduled, so our candidates know exactly which lectures to watch, because this is exactly the quiz topic that they will have this week. So they're guided through that whole process. So
the lectures they attend, it's a recorded lecture.
It's a pre-recorded
But
lecture.
the quiz is live.
But the quiz is live.
And at the same time, there's a live lecture taking place.
There's a live quiz discussion taking place.
And a live different topic taking place.
Yes.
Okay, so this is like to expedite the learning.
To expedite the learning process, exactly. So they would watch the pre-recorded lecture at any time that they want. Of course, it's recommended to do that before attempting the quiz. Again, they can watch it multiple times from home at any time. After they've watched that specific lecture, they will solve the quiz for that topic on the prep test platform, and then we will have a live quiz discussion with 48 hours after the quiz is open on the platform. So from the period between June and right now, we use this time to cover quizzes on all of the different topics. So different topics in the cases section, like medical management, endodontics, pathology, perio, restorative and pediatric dentistry, which were introduced recently to the course, and as well as multiple radiology quizzes, again, because radiology is half of the weight of the exam. So there's always, radiology is always going in tandem with the rest of the case, the cases. After phase 1, we will go into phase 2. The whole idea behind phase 1 is that after our candidates have been through phase 1, they're at a level now where they have a general understanding of every single concept that they need for the ACJ exam. And they got all of this training much, like around 3 months before they finished this part, a whole 3 months before their actual exam.
Yes.
So that gives us a lot of time to go into phase 2 and then into the mock exams. So the phase 2 is going to run from September until middle to end of October. So in phase 2, there's going to be live lectures covering all the topics. So now all of these lectures that they watched pre-recorded in the first phase,
phase 1, yes.
they will have all of these lectures again, but they're going to be live. Which again, there's 2 benefits to this, which is it's a revision of all of the information that you need, and the fact that it's live gives the candidates another opportunity to make sure they understand everything, and to interact with us. If we want to focus on something more, we can do that. If they have any questions, that, because as you're studying, usually as you get a deeper understanding, you may have deeper and deeper questions. So that gives us an opportunity to address all of those again.
Okay.
And then in that second phase, our candidates have already done all of the quizzes. So now, as Dr. Dhulfiqar mentioned, we want to challenge them more. We're ready to step it up. So this is when we start also having weekly mock exams.
On the second phase, you
So
start.
at the beginning of the
second
second phase, the practice.
Exactly.
begins.
And
Okay.
at the start of the second phase, we have weekly mock exams. Again, they're going in tandem with the lectures.
Okay.
So the lectures we're revising all of the information again, we're clarifying everything one more time, and then we also have a weekly mock exam, problem-based learning. So it's important for us to introduce practice as early on as possible during that whole process. And then, of course, the weekly mock exams are done in the same way as the quizzes on the prep test platform. They will have them open for 48 hours before
Mhm.
the discussion. You do the weekly mock, you get the result, and then
You do the live
discussion
discussions.
is done live.
Okay.
At the end of that second phase, before we get into the mock exams, we have a review week, which is something that we're introducing this cycle.
What's a review week?
So review week is basically to tie everything up before we get into the mock exams. So again, emphasize on the most important concepts, most important topics that you need to be aware of before the exam, phase right before the full exam.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions actually. So you talked about the phases. Now I'm an AFK candidate,
Mhm.
just finished, and I want to start, let's say, in September, right? Because now there is no live lectures going on, so the next cycle is in September. So how, and that's gonna be phase 2, as
Yes.
you mentioned, but I'm just starting.
Mhm.
So how will I actually utilize the ACJ course, and what type of flexibility will help me to be up to speed with the rest of the people?
All right, that's right. So because the course is divided into phases, if somebody joins this course at any time, for example, someone who did the AFK a couple of weeks ago and wants to start preparing for the ACJ in September, and they're going to join the course now, they're going to be following up with the course live from phase 2 onwards. So they have already missed the first phase of the course, which was from June to August. And so what's going to happen in that case is, as soon as they register, they're going to be guided on exactly how to catch up with all of the components that they've already missed. So basically, when you register, you will receive like a document outlining exactly what are the components that have already been done in this cycle for this course, and how you can catch up with those components.
So just to give an example,
Mhm.
so let's say I start now, I can attend the live lectures,
Yes.
but I would assume it's not recommended for me to do the practice because I did not cover all the material.
Exactly.
So after I attend the live lecture of medical management, I will be assigned the quiz of medical
Exactly.
management, which will be open for me, and then I can watch the recorded discussion of the medical management quiz.
Exactly.
So I will be going live with the lectures, but I'm not going to be doing the practice
weekly
half
mocks.
mocks, the weekly mocks. I'm going to be doing the quizzes instead.
Exactly.
Because one of the things actually that we implemented is that people who sign up for ACJ, they get access until they write their exam.
Yes,
So-
which is something I want to talk about. The 18 months program. This is very popular. One of the main questions that we receive here at Prep Doctors is, tell me a little bit more about the 18 months. So what we did is you have access, as you said, on this platform to watch all the lectures and the recordings and attempt the quizzes until you write your actual exam. There's a long waiting period.
time. Yeah, but it's,
So-
it's usually now it's like taking 9 months, I think, for people to be able,
Approximately.
around 9 months. So if we say, and we'll talk about the financials at the end, but I'm just talking to make it clear to people who want to start at a flexible date. So I think the easiest way to put it is, let's say I start in September,
Mhm.
or even to make it more complicated, I'm gonna start in October, which is mid phase 2.
Yes.
Is that possible? So the way the course is structured is, no matter when you start, there is a live component taking place. So you join that live component, and there is a pre-recorded library for you to catch up on. The quizzes will be open to you to do once you finish the topics. You can watch the discussions, and later on you're gonna catch a live phase. So if you started half phase 2, you are going to do half phase 2 live, and phase 1 and the first half of phase 2 recorded, and then you're gonna come to January and you're gonna join everything live now. before your exam. So it gives you that kind of head start.
Exactly.
So no matter when you start, you're gonna catch a full live cycle, and you have access to record it until you go to the exam. So, but they will be guided on, don't attempt the mocks now, don't attempt
It
the
won't be
practice.
assigned to them. Yes.
Exactly, yeah. So they will get that
Depending on
into-
when they're starting.
Does that, is that,
Exactly, yeah. So again, just like you mentioned, the challenge is if you've done your AFK in August, you will not have an opportunity to do it in November because there's limited seats and registration had already opened. So the earliest you will do your ACJ is in May of 2024. So if you
access until they get a seat.
So they'll have access for
And
one
that's when you
third
said
cycle.
the 18 month. So
Okay.
like when you're talking about 18 month is because the worst that can happen is not get a May and go to the next November. But the idea is pay once and get access until you write your exam. So
Yes.
that's the kind of service we're giving people who
Yes.
are in the
So
ACJ
speaking
phase.
of pay once, so we did develop a new program, which is the $200 per month for 18 months journey.
Okay.
For ACJ. So basically, as you illustrated, you pay once. There's two options. You pay once for the course and you have access till your exam, or you can pay over installments, $200 a month.
It's at zero interest as well.
Zero interest, of course, here at Prep Doctors. I mean, we adopted this, we
For-
pioneered this
yeah.
actually path. So 0% interest at Prep Doctors, of course. You
Enrolling
so-
is creating history for you to unlock the
Yes.
financial.
Exactly. So this is one very, very important that I want to highlight, is that enrolling in this program, in our ACJ program, will allow you to actually get priority to secure funding for the NDEB training program once you pass ACJ.
Okay, I have a question actually just to illustrate further. Let's say I started mid-October and I got access to half live now and then some recorded, and then I got access to the next full live cycle. What kind of updates do I expect or differences? Like, what's the benefit of having multiple cycles, especially when it comes to practice?
I'll let Dr. Zulfikar
Yeah.
address that.
So regarding practice, because this exam is basically all about practice, you don't need extra knowledge, extra studying, too much in-depth studying to take this exam. So it's all about practice. So the more practice you get, the better. So for example, if you start in October, let's say October, you will get recommendations, you will get schedule on how to catch up on what you missed. So you will do the previous quizzes, the previous mocks and everything. Then for the next cycle, we always update our quizzes, we always update our mocks, and also because we're always researching, we're always updating. So any updates regarding the material, it will be implemented on the next cycle. And all the quizzes, all the mocks, all the weekly mocks as well, they will be updated. So you'll take a full set of quizzes, weekly mocks and mocks, and then you will take another full set of quizzes, weekly mocks and mocks on the next cycle.
So to simplify it, let's say if I start now, I'm gonna get exposed to the material. I'm assuming the lectures and the basic knowledge is gonna stay very similar.
Yeah.
So I get exposed to that material, and then I have whatever left of the course to practice with them. I have all the previous quizzes to catch up on.
Yeah.
So I did some practice, then I come to the next live cycle. So the live components are going to be similar lectures to the ones I attended before with some updates.
Yeah.
That will be a revision for me, but the practice will have updates, so you get like a pretty much a new set of questions that you're going to practice on
Exactly.
in the next cycle.
Yes.
So it's like more double, I would say, or 1.5 times the practice
Exactly.
when you
Yes.
move on to the
Seems to be a
next
heavy
cycle.
exposure and heavy training, a lot of practice in the new program that you
Because I
developed.
believe that's what actually contributed to the high passing rate
Yeah.
that we started to
Absolutely.
experience, because back in the days people did not have much time to practice. They were out of AFK, they're still in an anxiety mode to wait for the results, so they're not focused, and they passed and they have 2 months to go to ACJ. So that did not expose them to practice. Now because of the cooling off period, which they are forced to go into due to the limitations in the seats, now they're getting exposed to tons of practice, which boosted the
Exactly.
passing rate
Yeah.
in ACJ.
Yeah, ultimately, as I mentioned, the challenge with this exam is being comfortable with the format and being able to figure out what is the best way to answer all of those different types of questions. And again, more practice is better success
Better.
rate, more confidence during the exam, and we really focus on that. Because it's an online, I also want to mention this, because it's a fully online course, we also don't want to compromise on the personal relationships we develop with our candidates. And also we know that people may require special help or guidance or just a little bit of extra support. And we also have implemented one-on-one consultation sessions.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, by the way, about that, the one-on-one consultations, because I know that last cycle you guys were heavy on that. So I know that the one-on-one, people have to book the session, so they have your schedules, you open some, it's like office hours kind of thing.
Exactly.
So they book sessions with you.
It's like office hours, yeah.
So if both of you can tell us about some of the challenges or the requests people have made through those one-on-one sessions, how did you feel after doing those one-on-one sessions, and give us some background on how they contributed to the success of the course.
Absolutely. So the one-on-one consultation sessions, anyone who's with us in the course has an opportunity to book that, and you can book a consultation session one time, multiple times, however many times you want until you go to your exam. And basically what we discuss in those sessions is whatever the candidate wants to discuss.
Okay.
So sometimes it's just someone who wants to ask or just wants to get some advice on how should I study, how should I be utilizing my time.
So like general advice.
General
sometimes.
advice. Also sometimes it's someone who has a specific question on a specific topic. Now I will mention that generally during the course I teach the radiology component, and Dr. Zulfikar teaches all of the cases component. So the candidates have an opportunity to book a session with whoever they want, whether it's me or with Dr. Zulfikar. So I'll let you discuss how you felt that these sessions have helped the candidates before they went to the exam.
Yeah. So to be honest, we saw that offering this individualized help affected the passing rate very in a very serious manner.
Significant,
Yeah, significant.
Of course.
So because there are, especially in cases, there are some cases or some disciplines in cases that they require a lot of practice and a lot of
There's a lot of controversies.
Yeah,
some controversial
especially
topics.
for example
Yeah.
ortho. Like
Yeah.
ortho is all about subjectivity. It's a very subjective manner. So what we do is
He seems to love ortho.
yeah. So for example, in ortho we sit one-on-one. We guide them through that case, how to look, how to analyze this case, and because also sometimes not everyone is comfortable asking question in front of everyone, and also not everyone is comfortable asking as many questions as they want. So during that time,
we have a lot of students that
Yeah.
keep asking questions during the
Yeah,
lectures.
because like in public, it's tough to sometimes if you have a
they
lot
hinder
less
the
person.
progression
Yeah.
of the class, or they slow it down sometimes. Of
Yeah.
course.
exactly. And by the way, I got that a lot. Like, I'm not comfortable asking in public. Can I please book a one-on-one session? And we did that multiple times, and it was very helpful for them. And we saw it on their performances, on their next mocks, and consequently on the ACJ exam.
The ACJ exam itself. So if I want, can I come to this consultation session, show you all my reports for my quizzes, for example, and you can guide me through what to focus on? Is that also something that you can do?
Yeah,
during the
exactly.
consultation?
And yeah, whenever someone books an online session with us, we actually prepare. We take a look at their records. I take a look at their scores and where they are making those mistakes. We track their improvements, and we focus mainly on what they are struggling with.
Wow.
So these are I want to say these are like customized for that particular individual. So one thing we do is, so because the course is basically practice from the beginning of the course until the end. So you're doing quizzes at the first phase, and then weekly mock exams, and then mock exams. So every single week you're being asked to do some sort of small test, right?
Yeah.
And so these sessions come in very handy because the candidate may be attending the lectures, studying very well, but maybe their scores are not reflecting the effort that they're putting. So these consultation sessions helps us and helps them to sort of do that in a more guided manner.
Because you also have access to their performance
Exactly. So
throughout.
we see some people, for example, are always choosing extra options. That's why they're losing grades. Some people are sometimes not choosing enough correct answers, so that's why they're not scoring high. And so
We have detailed, by the way, with the
Mhm.
introduction of the LMS D2L Brightspace, so the trackability, we are fine-tuning the trackability of the candidates. So you get their score, but not overall score. You even get a pattern. Like this person actually did not succeed because they overchose, or this person did not succeed because he was under choosing.
Exactly.
So you start to get like a detailed analysis, and that helps guide the individual, how to improve.
what to
We're
focus on,
implementing
how
it
to
across all the services
Yes.
in Prep Doctors, which is something that is gonna, I believe, improve the quality of teaching to even
Take it to the
superior
next level,
yeah,
of course.
Next level, yeah.
LMS is a very helpful tool, especially when it comes to detailed trackability and progress monitoring.
Yeah. Now, so I just want to summarize at the end, because we're coming to the end of the session. So if I want to take the course, or I want to start after AFK this year, I just want to highlight, based on the structure of the course, is that if you start, the sooner you start, the sooner, or the more the sooner you start actually in the ACJ course, you're gonna get exposed to more practice. So what I want people to be aware of is, if someone says, by the way, I'll wait till next year, the minute phase 1 starts again, then all the pre-recorded lectures, they are removed from the platform, because everything starts to get recorded again.
Yes.
So if
Live
someone starts in October, or they start in November, they have pretty much until January to catch up on the previous course, and the previous, I want to say, practice,
Yes.
which is important, because I strongly recommend for people to get exposed to 2 sets of practice than to get exposed to 1 set of practice. But if they come in January or Feb next year, then they're gonna only get exposed to whatever is
The
actually
full set,
conducted.
yeah, with the one set.
One set. So the advantage of starting, let's say, October, is that I'll get some of the live lectures. I'll have access to all the recorded lectures of phase 1, which started in June, phase 2, and the mock exams.
And the mock
I
exams.
can do them. I have access to them until December. The only part that doesn't get recorded is the mock exams, and
Yes.
especially the
The
on-site
discussions,
ones.
yes.
And then when they move on to the live again, they get exposed to revision of the lectures live, and plus more practice. So, and
With
that's
the
for,
new updates,
and
with
that's for the same
everything.
cost. It's for the same cost. So that's what I wanted to highlight.
So it is important to start.
Like they start
As soon
early,
as
they
they
get
can.
access to all of this until they go to their exam. They start later, they're gonna be paying
Yes.
the same course, and they're gonna get less practice compared to when starting now. And that's actually one of the main reasons why we did the payment plan, and we're encouraging people to spend 9 months or plus with us in the practice. So we believe that was key to increasing the passing rate and to the success of the candidates. So that's something that we want to encourage, especially candidates who are in the AFK phase, because I know they just wrote the AFK, they're waiting. I pray and I hope everybody passes the AFK. I know that maybe many of them now are not thinking about ACJ, they're thinking for the results. But the minute the results come out and they pass, they have the opportunity to enroll and start as soon as they want. And also they can start immediately, and they
Yes.
will be contacting you for any of
Yes,
that.
so actually a lot of our candidates that are doing the AFK, they did the AFK exam a couple of weeks ago. They're waiting for the results, but they feel like they did good. They actually
But half of
started.
the class already started the ACJ, I think.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
So about half of the class, a lot of them started the ACJ training because they're hopeful that they'll pass AFK, and this way, as you highlighted, that they'll start and they'll get exposure to this set of the ACJ course, practice, and also the next cycle starting in January.
Yeah.
So it's very important to highlight that feature. Okay, so now we'll take any questions for the doctors that are with us online. Please feel free to leave any questions on the YouTube chat, and we'll be able to answer any questions that you have. Okay, so I have a question. I have a question here. So do you suggest that I wait for my results to come out and then start, or can I start now? And if I start now and if I don't clear the AFK exam, what happens?
Okay, so I think the policies, you're the
Yes.
policy man over here and the client relations, but
But from an academic perspective, what do you suggest?
from an academic perspective, it's always the earlier they start, the smoother and the easier it's going to be for them.
Yes.
But we also have to cover the fact that if they commit to a service here, do they have the chance to opt out? And of course, that's something that you guys accommodate for, so you can talk about.
Yes, so this is something that we do accommodate for. This is something that we did go through in the previous cycle. It's case specific sometimes, so I suggest that you reach out to info@prepdoctors.ca, and we have so many resources and tools to actually help. It's a tailored feedback on how to process next, go into AFK review package, or we'll see what other alternatives we have. So again, feel free to reach out to info@prepdoctors.ca.
Now, one thing that actually I just
ACJ
the
roadmap.
program we
Yeah.
have in the ACJ, especially the payment plan, they are the ones who get the priority for the funding in the NDEB, and they get the priority for the seats.
Yes.
So that's why also I want to highlight that this program is limited. It's not like open. It's limited in numbers based on the seats available in the skills. So although it's an ACJ exam, but because it's unlocking the financial
Funding
aid,
for the
so it's going to be
NDEB.
limited to those who
Yes.
are going to be.
Of course, we're always planning to expand more and more
Yeah.
our seats in the clinical exam, the NDEB exam, but we're limited
Yeah,
on
but
seats
I
for
mean,
that.
like we had to reject
Yes.
candidates, unfortunately, because yes, there is a seat
Limited,
limitation
yes.
that we have.
Of course. So, question here is, what is the total price of the course? So the course is 3,200. All the information is on our website, but it's 3,200. Is there a possibility to secure a seat after the AFK exam, even 10%? So do you think that NDEB will open up more seats?
So it's tough to, we can't speak on behalf of NDEB, you know, like,
Okay.
because if you say something and they change their mind, but based on what people are saying, because
Yes.
they have contacted the NDEB and they have asked them, and they expressed that they're not willing to open more seats for the November. But you never know, like, you know how for NDEC seats get full and then all of a sudden one day they open 4 or 5 seats.
Yes.
But what is almost for certain is that if they're gonna open seats, it's gonna be minimal. It's not gonna be like opening seats for everybody. So usually they open seats, I feel, for if someone pulls out because they want to just fill the gaps.
Withdraw or
Yeah,
something,
that's based
yes.
on the NDB. Now, if they were able to come up with a plan where they expand the centers and so forth, that's something that.
That's something else, yeah.
I want to add something about the previous question that you mentioned. Like, what if I start ACJ now, and God forbids I don't make it for AFK? I want to mention here that during the ACJ lectures, we are still reviewing theoretical information. So whatever you're learning during the ACJ lectures, it's not going to be something separate from what you learned in the AFK. It will actually benefit you. It will like act like as a revision for you.
Yeah.
So you will still benefit from the ACJ lectures even for the AFK exam.
Of course, because you need the AFK anyways as a basis to actually
But I
have
think
that
people,
knowledge.
their concern is more financial in that aspect. than
Yes, actually I have multiple questions here about, can you elaborate more on the monthly payment plan, and can you elaborate more on the financing plan? Of course, so it's very simple actually. From the minute you register, you can register paying $200 a month. It's once per month. You do a payment once per month, $200 for 18 months. So the course is 3,200. 18
And the
months,
payment
simple
plan
math.
begins from the time they register.
From the time they register, exactly. And from the time you register, again, as Dr. Khalid and Dr. Tulfakar elaborated, you get access immediately to our platform. You can start watching the lectures. And the payment starts once a month for $200 a month for 18 months. It's very simple and very, very important to highlight. Of course, Prep Doctors.
And it's going to
interest-free.
overlap, just to give them heads up into the future, it will overlap with the payment plan of INDEC.
Yes.
Because
if
they're
all
gonna
goes
be-
well and they get a seat
Yeah.
and the results come out.
Exactly, because they still have payments to make towards ACJ, and they've already passed ACJ.
Exactly.
So the idea is, like, let's say they start enrolling in INDEC, so they will still have, let's say, if they were able to finish in 9 months, they still have 9 months of payment, and on top of that, it's going to be the payment plan for the INDEC
For the
that's going to
INDEC,
kick
yes.
in later on. So
Yes,
they're going
but
to
it's very
overlap a
important to
little.
highlight also that it's absolutely interest free. There's no other fees, there's no other charges, just $200 per month for 18 months. And yeah, it's straightforward. You don't need to apply outside, you don't need to qualify. Just register for the course and we'll take care of everything else for you.
And of course, you can always reach Rafiq.
Yes, you can
famous.
always reach me. Yes, I try my best to keep up with the demand, but yes, me and my team will be more than happy to help everyone. Okay, so again, back to the same question. What if I start the $200 payment plan and then, God forbid, I don't clear AFK? That's fine. You can transfer that into credit to use it for more options. AFK review package. We have a lot of options in that case. So again, feel free to contact info at Prep Doctors, and I'll be more than
I
happy to
think
sit
what we
with
meant,
you.
Rafiq, here is, will he lose the credit on the ACJ so that it will not be utilized towards ACJ at all?
No, it won't be utilized towards ACJ.
So even
no.
though they took the service, they're not
Yes,
gonna
your money's safe.
Yeah.
Yes, you can utilize it towards AFK. All right, I believe that's everything for today.
Thank you.
I would like to thank you everyone for attending,
you.
and
Thanks,
of course thank our doctors for attending today. We hope that this session was informative and helpful. For any more questions, feel free to reach for info, phone call, email. I would love to have you walk-ins at one of our campuses, and we'll be more than happy to help everyone. Again,
And what I want to say is, feel free to reach out to clarify more. As I mentioned, sometimes what happens is we get candidates that they don't know about the features. Like they come, they say, "Oh, I didn't know your course was online." So that's why
Yes.
it's always important to hear from the source. So the source for information on Prep Doctors is Prep Doctors. So reach out to Prep Doctors so you can actually get the information.
Yes.
And we'll be there to help you.
Yes, and also just to elaborate on that, for our attendees that attended today, you'll be receiving an email with like key points and highlights of what we talked about today. Again, thank you everyone for attending. We really
you.
appreciate it. Thank you everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good
Enjoy
day.
the rest of the day.